welcome to this video. In this tutorial, we're going to be diving into another basic but very important concept of computer programming, and it is called data types. So remember from the last class, I talked about variables, and I talked about how variables are containers that we use to hold values. Well, those values that we hold, they are of different types. And as I mentioned in the last video, we can store numbers, whole numbers. We can store numbers that have decimal points. So those type of data we store are different. It is important for us to know which type of data we are storing in a variable and the kind of operations we can perform with it. So this is why the concept of data types is so important in computer programming. But before we jump in, please smash that like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't, and hit the notification bell to join our community. So let's start with the fundamentals. Python has several built-in data types. In some other programming languages, we call them primitive data types, but in Python, they are all built-in. And we are going to see some examples on how to use them practically. So I think the most used data type is called numbers in Python. So let me just write some comments here. So the first data type we're going to see is called numbers, and as the name suggests, it is any form of integer, be it numbers with decimal points or whole numbers. So let's see, for the first variable, we can say age equals 26. Right, this is a whole number. We can also go ahead and check a negative number. A negative number can also be stored as a number, something like let's say temperature. Let's say -2. Then we can also store pi to be equal to 3.142. So now when we go ahead, we can print them. So the print age, print temperature, and print pi. So we have three variables. The first one is a whole number, it's an integer, right? Now this one with a negative, the negative number is also an integer. Then numbers with decimal points are called floats. So this one is a float. Let me put the comment in front of it. These ones are called integers. Integer. Now when we go ahead and print them, we get their answers. So there is also another type of numbers that we have in Python called complex numbers. So those ones, we don't usually use them. So I can say complex num. So you can say 3 plus 8i or 8j. So these are complex numbers in Python, and they have very special use cases. So in another situation, another data type we can use is called strings. So strings are any series of characters enclosed in quotation marks. It could be numbers, it could be text. Although strings are usually associated with alphabets, but numbers can also be strings as long as they are inside quotes. So let's have a username, for example. Let's say username should be equal to John. Right, there's a string. Now we could also have a message like we've been doing before. So I'll say hello world. Remember, you can also use double quotes. So I'll say hello, right? And I can even put numbers like I said. So I'll say my number. I'll say my num should be equal to 1, 2, 3, 4. So these are all strings, and when we go ahead and print them, we get the output. So username, we get message, and we also print minor. So when we print all this, we get the string outputs for each of the variable. Now the next data type we're going to talk about is called lists. So lists are like variables that allow us to hold multiple values together, and lists are one of the most used data types in Python programming. So let's see an example of lists. So let me say pets, right? So we want to hold a series of pets together. So we create a list, and the first pet, say cat, dog, and what other pets do we have? Okay, let's say parrots, right? So we have just one variable, but we give it 3 different values. So this is called a list. Now we can go ahead and print it, and when I print it, when we print pets, we get all 3 values together in the terminal as we see it. Now lists have a characteristic: they are mutable, which means they can be changed. So if I go ahead and I want to add to it, I'll say pets dot append. Now this is called a method, but I'm going to create another video where I talk about lists and list methods in detail. But in this video, I just want to introduce the concept of data types. So I can go ahead and add one more pet. I really can't think of anyone else, so I'll just say lion. Right. Now when you go ahead and print it, so print pets. So you see that lion has been added to our list of pets. Now the next data type we're going to talk about is called tuple. So tuple are very similar to lists, and the only difference is that tuples, unlike lists, they cannot be changed. So once you set the value once, tuples don't have this dot append method. So whatever you create at once stays unchanged. So now let's create a tuple of, let's say, scores, like test scores. And the difference in syntax is that, unlike lists, tuples use parentheses. So let's create a series of scores. I'll say 86, 78, 96, 89. So we have a tuple containing 4 elements. And when I go ahead and print it, I get 4 elements in the tuple. And when we try to change the tuple by trying to look for a method, you see the only 2 methods available to us are count and index. There is no append. If I type it, I can't see append there. Okay, so but of course I'm going to make another video later where I talk about tuple and other data structures in depth. So the next data type we're going to talk about, built-in data type in Python that we talk about, is called dictionaries or dictionary. So dictionaries allow us to store values that are related in key value pair. So an example of that is, take a student, for example, right? So take a student, and we have data that correspond to each other. So I can say first name, it's a string. So first name is the key, then whatever first name is the value. So I'll say John. Then we can also say last name. So last name is the key, Doe is the value, right? And you separate them using commas. So the next thing we can also look at is let's say age. Age is the key, and the value we want to store is the age of the student. So we can say 21 also separate using a command. The last we're going to add to our dictionary is probably a Boolean value. So we'll say a student, and the value will be true. You understand? So when we go ahead and print this, so you get the output of everything: first name, John, and so on. And in fact, we can use the keys to access whichever value we want. So take, for instance, you want to know the age of the student. So we can simply go ahead and use the key. So we take the key, which is age in this case, and when we print that, we simply get 21. So you see, using the key, we were able to get the value. So the next data type we're going to talk about, and I think this is basically the last one we're going to be looking at, it's called Boolean. So Boolean data type is simply true or false. You understand? They allow us to add logic to our program. If something is true, do this, and so on. So call it Boolean, or Bool for short. So like we've seen before, a student is true. Okay, let me say is professor, and the answer will be false. Sorry. So this is a Boolean value, and when we go ahead and print it, we get false. So these are the built-in data types we have in Python. So with this, sorry about that, we have come to the end of this video. The first data type we talk about numbers, and under numbers we have integers, we have floats, and we have complex numbers, right? So I'll say complex. So complex numbers. Then the next data type we talk about is strings, followed by list, then tuple, then dictionary, and Boolean. So that's all for this video. Please once again make sure to hit that like button, subscribe for more videos. We are uploading tutorial every 2 days or 3 days, and make sure to comment, and if you have any question, leave it in the comment section below, and I'll try my best to answer it as much as I can. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.